So I made a coper for my skateboard. This is a different design slightly than my other video if you saw. I'm going to teach you and show you the steps of how I made this. And just to show you beforehand that it really does actually work and fits my board, I'm going to put it on. See? Coper. Now if I can get it off. There we go. Finally got it off. So you'll need PVC pipe. I'm using 1-inch PVC because I noticed it works really well with my independent trucks, but it doesn't really work well with my Gullwing or my Ace trucks. So when you're picking out PVC, make sure it works specifically for that truck because you're really making it custom made for that truck. Other items you'll need, or at least I recommend, is a clamp, a rotary tool. I have this PVC cutter that will help. Measuring tape, actual tape measure. A Sharpie, I got a red one too, and some sandpaper, and an imagination, if that helps. So our first step is to grab the PVC. Obviously the PVC is way too long for the hanger on the truck, and luckily I still have the one I made from before, so I could use that as a reference, but we're going to take our measuring tape, and we're going to measure the hanger of the truck. And when you're doing this, since I have mini cubics on here, obviously they stick a little bit more towards the hanger because they're such big wheels. So do note that your setup, you don't want it to affect your riding in any way when you have the coper on it. So I'm just going to use my reference one since I already made it. It's about 5.5 inches. So I'm going to mark it at the 5.5. If you have this kind of measuring tape, it works probably a little bit better because you get the round cylinder of, so you can mark it easier that way. I'm just drawing a line so when I use my cutters, I know where I'm going. So you can just use your cutters or a saw or anything like that to cut your PVC, but I'm going to use a clamp just for extra support because I noticed that if I hold it and then cut it, that sometimes the ends become slanted because it moves and bends. So I really want to have that support of the clamp. All right, it's fairly sturdy now. Now we can cut it. Make sure it's nice and straight and not leaning with the blade. Get a better cut. A little bit slanted, but it's not that bad. I could just sand that down real quick. There you go. That's perfect now for me. So now we got to mark the area where we're going to cut directly down here. Or if we look on my old scrap piece, like that. You'll create that line right there. You take the measured tape, do that, and then draw a line between the two. Got our line. So now we're going to clamp it on here and we're going to start cutting one line at a time until this middle piece falls off. Make sure you got your proper equipment for safety, gloves, face shield, anything you can. I don't have any of that. I just have a face mask. So when cutting, I'm only going to use 3 speed settings on my Dremel. Speed number 5, 10, and 15. 5 and 10 are just to have a baseline groove so I can follow along when I'm cutting so it's easier so it doesn't go all over the place and screw up my project, right? Another thing I like about the number 5 and the 10, last thing before I start, is that because it'll chip away the paint, I can see where my line is a little bit better. So that's a good little thing to note. You gotta be careful though because the higher the speed, it will melt the plastic. So now we're going to take the coper that we have so far, match it up with the kingpin, the bushings and everything, and the nut. And what we're going to do is create a little bit of space for the kingpin so when this goes down, it's not, you need space for it. Go on the edge of the bushing, right? Hopefully you can see it. Great. So like that. You want to start off a lot smaller, because if you cut too deep and too much, you might screw it up and then the whole thing is screwed up. So just take it slow and cut small bits at a time. Check it on the skateboard. We got it on there, kind of. I mean, there's a ton of space and it's not going to stay on if we skate. It's definitely going to pop off. But you can see that the hanger right there, we need to cut a little bit more up. So we're just going to guess, because even if I cut everything around here, no matter what, this area is just going to stop no matter what with the bolt. I don't know if you can see it on the camera that well. Now we're going to test on the truck again, and just work with the truck every time until you find the right size and right everything. There we go. Kingpin itself looks fine, so now we just got to cut down here and create room for that and cut the back. I did here. See how I kind of angled it down here, and then I cut the back slightly just to help this grip over it. Now we're going to test it on the truck again. And then we got to cut the backing. Actually, we can do the backing now. It's just this part that we're cutting. You want to go slightly, because the more deeper you go, yeah, it'll clamp over it, but you'll lose the stability and it'll start wobbling a little bit. So you got to be really careful with that. So on the backing, you see how it's flush right here, but then it starts to go up. Same on this side. We want to mark it right where it starts to touch, where it's flush and about to go up. Now, was just mark just some final touches for the cuts. Yep. Oh, that's so much better. If you guys liked that video, it took way too long to make and explain something so simple. Got our cropers.